This is the Hardy Averon, and it's Hardy's latest modern freshwater reel. And today, I'm here to review it. That's right, as you might have guessed by looking at it, this new Averon is Hardy's latest modern freshwater reel. And you might have guessed because it looks fairly similar to virtually every other modern freshwater reel that Hardy's made. And I use the word modern to differentiate it from the Perfects and the Cascapedias and the Bouglets that Hardy also makes. Those reels are designed to look and perform like reels from the 1920s, but of course, not everyone's into that. And sometimes you just want a reel that is a little more high performance. And so that's why they make the Averon. And they've been making a similar reel for a long time. The Ultra Disc came before this one. And then there was the Ultra Light, the Ultra Light DD. And most of them have shared a fairly similar look. And this one is not that different. So without any further ado, let's dive into our 5 factors to see how this reel performs, starting with the drag. And the drag on this reel is totally adequate for freshwater situations. We're reviewing the 5,000 size, which is the 456 size. And this reel puts out about 2 or 3 pounds of drag. It is definitely not a ton of drag. The good news is that drag is fairly smooth, and honestly, I think that smoothness is going to be more important than strength for most trout fishing applications. Let's face it, even if he turns into the current, you're probably still going to be able to stop that fish on 2 or 3 pounds of drag. In terms of adjustability, this has about a turn and a quarter of adjustability. That's about as much as I can do without a wrench. And like I said in the Averon Euro video, if you've watched it, if you haven't, you should. That's a more interesting take on this reel. That's a reasonable amount of adjustability for a drag that doesn't get that tight. It does work sort of throughout the range and does have a fairly linear adjustment, but if it had more drag strength, I would want sort of an extra turn or so. But because it doesn't, you can pretty much just crank this down even on 5X and you'll probably be okay. And so I don't really think that a turn and a quarter is bad by any means. And if you're one of those people who really loves a single turn drag, you've more or less got it here. This drag also is not sealed, as you might expect from a freshwater series. You probably don't want to use this reel in the salt, and if you do, make sure you rinse it out thoroughly. So let's move on to the spool. And the spool on this reel is pretty good. Hardy's done a fairly good job recently of designing spools, and this reel here has a max diameter of 3.7 inches, a nice narrow width of 0.88 inches, which is a little bit narrower than we've seen that sort of now kind of standard 1-inch width. And that's going to lead to better retrieval rates and less piling up. And we've got a nice, fairly large arbor at about 2.68 inches. And that's going to yield a retrieval rate of about 9 inches per turn, or 130 turns for your 100-foot fly line. And that is a fairly quick retrieval rate, even by today's standards. This reel does have a high-performance spool, and it works really pretty well. Of course, it's not the absolute highest performing reel out there, but if you're looking for high performance and a Hardy, this is going to be the freshwater model that gives you that combination. In terms of backing capacity, you'll be able to fit about 150 yards with your weight forward 5-weight, which is a more than adequate amount of backing given that this is a freshwater reel. So let's move on to the weight. And the weight on this is 4.3 ounces, which is by no means ultra light, but it is totally fine, and it is on the lighter side of reels. If you're looking for something ultralight, to me, that's sub 4 ounces for a 5-weight, but this isn't really that far away from it, and it's going to be totally fine even on the lightest rods today. This review is brought to you by Trident Travel, which is our new destination travel service where you'll get our expert advice, planning, and guidance at no additional cost. That means no credit card fees, no booking fees, and for a limited time, you'll even earn Trident rewards on your travel bookings. So with every trip you book, you'll be earning valuable points that you can use towards free tackle here at Trident. Recently, we've had some clients go on some absolutely fantastic trips like bone fishing in Belize, steelhead fishing in BC, and tarpon fishing in Belize. So if you're thinking about taking a fly fishing trip, Trident Travel is the way to do it. We've got a ton of great destinations, excellent service, and even more destinations being added every month. Check us out at tridentflyfishing.com/travel. So let's talk about sound, and the sound on this I think is actually one of its better features. Let's take a listen. As you can tell, it's not quite as loud as a Hardy Perfect, but if something that's a little bit muted is up your alley, I think this has a really nice tone. And it's really well differentiated between the incoming and the outgoing. All in all, I think that's fairly well done. Up next are the ergonomics, and the ergonomics on this reel just work. We've got a drag knob that is easy to grab. You can definitely crank this down as far as is reasonable. And given that this isn't a big game saltwater reel, you don't really need to crank it down that hard. So a smaller drag knob is totally fine. Similarly, this doesn't have a huge big game handle, but it's absolutely workable. And of course, if you like to fish multiple spools, the spool pops off very easily on this reel. Just turn this center section here, pull it right off. And putting it back together is just as easy and definitely something that you can do on the water. So that is the Hardy Averon. Let's talk pricing. And for this 5-weight, 5,000 size, you are looking at a retail price of $425, which I think is fairly expensive for a 5-weight reel. With the Hardy, you are getting some really great performance, but unfortunately, at that price point, for either a little bit more or a little bit less, you can get a made in the USA reel, and I think the quality of those reels is just a little bit higher. That's not a knock on this reel. I do think it is a very high quality reel. I just think if I were spending $400, I'd probably spend $475 and get something like a Ross Evolution instead. But of course, that is a little bit more money, and if you want high performance and ultimate performance at this price point, I think this probably is it. And this picks up line really, really quickly, and all in all is just a great freshwater reel in a very well done package. Let us know what you think about this Averon by leaving us a comment in the box below. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. And of course, if you've got questions, we've got answers. Give us a call at 888-413-5211 or email us 24/7 at support@tridentflyfishing.com. I'm Ben. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.